At 6:14 local time in the North Atlantic, near the edge of Greenland's ice pack, 3 contacts appear on the sonar almost at the same moment. No active signal, no identification, only 3 submerged signatures emerging from different bearings. Each one holds a precise depth layer. One remains deep, one stays in the middle band, and one moves just beneath the cold surface layer where sound bends and fades. The sonar operator doesn't need to speak loudly. There's no need. Multiple underwater contacts. Patterned movement. Inside the Combat Information Center, the room falls quiet. Not the quiet of panic, but the quiet of professionals who immediately understand what this could mean. These contacts are not drifting aimlessly. They are moving with purpose. Their speed is low, but steady. Their courses are converging. Their separation is deliberate. This is not background interference. This is not fishing traffic. And it is definitely not random. A second operator overlays the track history. The lines narrow and sharpen. The geometry is unmistakably clean. 3 submarines working in coordination. The watch supervisor leans in toward the display. He has seen this pattern before. Everyone in the room has. The spacing, the staggered depths, the way one contact lingers back while the other 2 edge forward. A textbook pressure posture. No one says the word out loud. They do not have to. The acoustic profile is already telling the story. Blade rate, cavitation pattern, machinery harmonics just above the noise floor. Softened, controlled, but still recognizable. On the bridge above, the ship stays on course. No speed change, no evasive move, no outward reaction at all. Below deck, the order is given. Condition 3. The officer of the watch says it evenly. Set and man all key stations, passive only. Log everything. No alarm sound, no warning lights flash. This is not an engagement, this is observation. The ocean here is deceptive. Cold layers stack like sheets of glass. Ice drifts silently overhead, breaking sonar paths and distorting distance. Near the ice edge, sound does not move in a straight line. It bends, it disappears, it misleads. And someone below is using that environment with extreme care. The forward contact drops a few meters deeper, just enough to test the water column. Seconds later, the shallow contact mirrors the move, offset by half a nautical mile. They are checking for a reaction. None comes. The NATO escort holds steady, its sonar suite absorbing data without revealing anything in return. Every second adds detail. Every minute sharpens the picture. Then the third contact moves. The deepest one increases speed slightly, not toward the ship, but across its projected path. A lateral movement. Controlled. Subtle. A message without words. We are here. We see you, and we are not alone. Inside the CIC, a liaison officer confirms the combined feed. A second Allied platform farther out is seeing the same pattern. Different angle, same conclusion. This is not a single submarine acting boldly. It is a group operating together. The sonar display fills with faint lines, each tagged, time-stamped, and cataloged. No one reacts when the closest point of approach drops below a mile. It is assertive, but still carefully kept inside the margins of plausible denial. Close enough to be noticed. Far enough to claim restraint. For a brief moment, all 3 tracks align. Now the submarines move almost parallel, stacked vertically in the water column like a silent barrier. That is when the captain speaks over the internal net. Maintain course, maintain silence. No emotion, no hesitation. Above the surface, the sea remains calm. Broken ice catches the low light. To anyone watching from a distance, it would seem that nothing is happening at all. But beneath the surface, 3 Russian submarines have drawn a line across one of NATO's most sensitive maritime corridors. And now they are waiting to see what happens next. The ship does not respond. No turn, no speed change, no rise in emissions. From the outside, it looks like indifference. Inside the Combat Information Center, it is discipline. The 3 underwater contacts continue their approach, each staying in its assigned layer. The shallow contact rides the thermocline where sound scatters and range becomes uncertain. The mid-layer contact remains steady, serving as the anchor. The deep contact moves wider, slow, and patient. This is not a rush, it is a test. The sonar supervisor watches the track stretch and tighten, reading intent through geometry instead of volume. Every turn rate, every slight change in speed, every subtle adjustment is logged. Still no active ping. The rule underwater is simple. The first side to speak reveals something. Above the CIC, the bridge stays calm. The officer of the deck keeps the ship on its planned route, hands steady on the console. The sea state is unchanged. The ice edge remains ahead, fractured and drifting, concealing everything below. Then the contacts do something new. The shallow contact slides inward, closing the gap. The CPA drops again, not enough to justify immediate action, but too close to ignore the pressure it creates. The mid-layer contact responds by reducing speed by half a knot. A tiny adjustment, but enough to shift the geometry. The deep contact holds position outside the immediate envelope, almost like an observer watching the entire board. They are coordinating without a sound. Inside the CIC, an Allied data link flickers alive. Far away, a maritime patrol aircraft holds position in silence, unseen, feeding environmental updates into the network. Sea temperature gradients, salinity levels, ice drift speed, every variable sharpens the picture. Nothing goes back the other way. The sonar operator fine-tunes the filters, stripping out ice noise and biological interference. What remains is clean, almost too clean. One of the contacts briefly changes RPM. Just a slight increase, barely enough to register. It is not about speed, it is a check. A quiet way of asking whether someone is watching. Someone is. But no one responds. The NATO escort stays unreadable. No ping, no maneuver, no reaction. Minutes pass, and then the formation shifts. The deep contact edges closer to the projected track line, narrowing its lateral distance. At the same time, the shallow contact drops several meters, slipping below a stronger thermal boundary. That move sharpens its acoustic outline, a small error, but it is recorded. The watch officer leans closer. He says nothing. He does not need to. The data is already speaking clearly. This is no longer simple probing. This is controlled positioning. The three submarines are trying to bracket the ship's projected path. One ahead, one off the beam, one trailing wide. A classic containment pattern, adjusted for operations near the ice edge. Still no weapons posture. Still no step beyond positional pressure. Still deniable. The CIC clock keeps moving. With every passing minute, confidence rises. Every bearing update tightens the classification. The system marks consistency across all three contacts. Machinery harmonics align. Blade counts fall within expected ranges. Even through ice-distorted propagation, the acoustic fingerprints are clear. These submarines did not cross paths by chance. They arrived together. Across the internal net, a brief message moves through the system. Contacts classified. 3 units. Coordinated behavior confirmed. No extra language. No commentary. Only facts. The shallow contact presses closer again, now well inside what any civilian vessel would consider acceptable. The mid-layer contact compensates with a slight turn to preserve formation integrity. The deep contact slides outward, covering the flank. They are confident, possibly too confident, because the ocean is not theirs alone. What the Russian submarines cannot see is the other half of the board, a quiet layer of tracking outside their immediate awareness. Passive sensors placed where sound folds back on itself. Platforms holding position because movement is unnecessary. The Russians are watching the ship. They have not realized who else is listening. Inside the CIC, the captain's order remains unchanged. Maintain silence. Maintain course. The NATO escort keeps moving forward, calm on the surface, unreadable below it. The shadow game continues, and the longer it lasts, the less it favors the side trying to prove control. Without a single sound, the balance begins to shift. Deep below the ice edge, a fourth presence changes depth. It does not rush, it does not accelerate, it simply slides into a layer of water where sound behaves differently, where temperature and salinity bend acoustic paths like glass. From there, movement is barely necessary. It only needs to listen. The 3 Russian submarines continue their pattern, still focused on the NATO escort. Their formation tightens, relaxes, then tightens again. They believe they are shaping the encounter. They believe they control the geometry. They are mistaken. Inside the NATO Combat Information Center, a new track appears, not as a raw contact, but as a solution. Bearings begin to align across multiple sensors. Timestamps match. What began as inference hardens into certainty. The ocean gives up its secrets slowly, but in the end, it gives them up. The shallow Russian contact adjusts depth once more, chasing a clearer acoustic window near the underside of the ice. The move is precise, practiced, confident, and unnecessary. That small adjustment sharpens its signature just enough. The sonar operator flags it immediately. The data system correlates it with the other 2 contacts. Blade rate, shaft harmonics, auxiliary noise. The small mechanical traces no amount of discipline can fully erase. 3 submarines, same family, same doctrine. Now the picture locks in. And still, NATO does nothing. No ping, no maneuver, no visible acknowledgement. The escort holds course like a metronome, steady and predictable, giving away nothing. On the surface, the ship threads through broken ice with calm indifference. Below the surface, the real movement is happening somewhere else. The fourth presence, silent and patient, uses the ice itself as concealment. Sound reflects, echoes overlap. What reaches Russian sensors is incomplete, distorted, misleading. They do not realize they are being observed from an angle they never accounted for. Then the deep Russian contact senses that something is off. Its speed drops by a fraction of a knot. Not enough to look cautious, just enough to reassess. The mid-layer contact compensates immediately, adjusting its bearing to keep the spacing intact. The formation still holds, but the rhythm is no longer flawless. Inside the CIC, no one celebrates. No one even speaks. This isn't a moment for reaction. It's a moment for collection. Every small change the Russian submarines make adds another piece of information. Every correction reveals a habit. Every effort to restore symmetry leaves another acoustic fingerprint. The fourth presence remains completely passive, allowing the Russians to do the work themselves. Minutes pass. Then something small, but important, happens. The shallow contact drifts upward again, this time a little too far. For a brief moment, it crosses into a layer where background noise thins and the submarine's own mechanical sound becomes more noticeable. The change is subtle, but it's there. The tracking solution sharpens instantly. A senior watch officer gives a single nod. That is enough. Not enough to reveal anything, not enough to respond, just enough to confirm. Now the Russians begin to feel something different. Not detection exactly, but uncertainty. Their formation starts to lose the confidence it had earlier. Movements that were once precise now feel slightly reactive. The deep contact widens its arc, moving farther away than before. The mid-layer contact slows again, attempting to recenter the pattern. They are no longer pressing forward. They are adjusting. On the NATO side, nothing changes. Maintain silence, maintain course. The escort continues forward as if nothing unusual is happening. Calm, predictable, almost indifferent. The Russian submarines are still close enough to be present, but no longer close enough to dominate. And in this environment, that difference matters. Under the ice, control is not about distance. It is about understanding the environment better than the other side. The Russians arrived to challenge a ship. What they didn't realize is that they stepped into something much more layered, a quiet trap built from patience, physics, and discipline. The shadow game is no longer balanced, and the ones who came to test NATO resolve are beginning to sense they may have stayed longer than planned. The moment does not arrive with alarms. It arrives with a deviation. On the sonar display, the mid-layer Russian contact changes course by only a few degrees. It is a tiny shift, not dramatic, not enough to justify any response. But it breaks the symmetry that had existed since the first contact. Inside the Combat Information Center, several heads turn at once. That move wasn't part of the original pattern. Seconds later, the deep contact reacts, increasing its lateral distance instead of tightening the formation. The shallow contact hesitates, holding its depth longer than expected. For the first time since the encounter began, the three submarines are no longer moving as a single coordinated unit. The silence stretches. Still, NATO does nothing to exploit it. No active signal, no maneuver, no acknowledgement. The escort continues forward, steady and unreadable, as if nothing has changed. But everything has. The fourth presence beneath the ice has not moved at all. It hasn't needed to. From its position, the Russian adjustments are obvious, almost loud in their restraint. This is what uncertainty looks like underwater. The Russian boats are not leaving, not yet. But they are no longer pressing forward either. Their movements have shifted from deliberate pressure to cautious correction. Inside the CIC, the tracking picture is now complete. 3 contacts, fully classified, positions refined, behavior patterns mapped. The earlier uncertainty has vanished. There is no longer any doubt about who is present, how they are operating, or what doctrine they are following. And that knowledge shifts the balance more effectively than any display of force ever could. The shallow contact makes another adjustment, dropping back into a deeper layer. It is a defensive move rather than an aggressive one, a quiet attempt to reduce exposure without signaling withdrawal. The mid-layer contact slows again, just slightly. The deep contact continues widening its arc, placing more water between itself and the escort's projected path. They are beginning to step away from the center. On the bridge, the captain receives the update in short, precise language. Contacts classified. Formation coherence degraded. He does not answer immediately. Instead, he watches the sea ahead through reinforced glass. Fragments of ice drift past the bow. The ship's wake remains unchanged. Finally, he speaks. Maintain course. That is all. No escalation, no change in posture, no declaration of success. Because the objective was never to force a reaction. The objective was to let the other side reveal itself. Now the Russians understand that something has changed. They do not know exactly what. They do not know where the pressure is coming from, but they can feel it. The confidence that drove their original approach has faded. For the first time since the encounter began, the shallow contact begins increasing distance. Smoothly, gradually, the kind of movement designed to look intentional rather than forced. The mid-layer contact follows, opening space in its bearing. The deep contact holds its wider arc, no longer acting as the formation's anchor. The invisible line they once drew across the corridor begins to dissolve. Inside the CIC, no one says a word. The data keeps flowing. Every movement is logged, every correction marked with time. This is how control looks beneath the surface. Silent, patient, unmistakable. Nothing was launched, nothing was transmitted, nothing was revealed, and yet the result is clear. The Russian submarines never gained control. They did not force NATO to react. They did not dictate the terms of the encounter. Instead, they revealed themselves. The escort moves through the stretch of water where that invisible line once existed. On the surface, nothing marks the moment. Beneath it, the encounter is already over. The Russian submarines begin to withdraw. Not in a rush, not in panic, but carefully, professionally, with just enough restraint to maintain plausible deniability. What they leave behind is far more valuable than proximity. They leave behind data. The fourth presence remains silent and still, allowing the distance to grow on its own. There is no pursuit, no added pressure. The message has already been delivered. Under the Greenland ice, the board has quietly reset, and the side that arrived to challenge has accepted that the moment has passed. The ocean settles first. On the surface, everything looks the same. Broken ice drifting slowly, low Arctic light reflecting off the water, and the steady wake of the NATO escort continuing along its planned route. Below the surface, the picture begins to thin. One by one, the Russian contacts drift outward. They do not disappear suddenly. Instead, they stretch slowly into wider water. Their bearings separate. Their depths change. The tight coordination that defined the beginning of the encounter dissolves into distance. This is not an escape. It is a controlled withdrawal. The shallow contact pulls back first, sliding deeper and opening distance until its acoustic signature softens into the background noise of the sea. The mid-layer contact follows, adjusting course to a parallel track well outside any close approach range. The deep contact stays the longest. It holds position just far enough away to observe, then gradually arcs outward, leaving no uncertainty. The challenge is finished. Inside the Combat Information Center, the status board updates quietly, step by step. Tracks move from active encounter to monitored departure. Timers continue running, logs remain open. There is no celebration. There never is. The captain receives the final assessment without ceremony. Contacts withdrawing. No further aggressive maneuvering. He acknowledges it with a small nod. Nothing more. Because from NATO's perspective, this was never about winning a visible confrontation. It was about control. Control of information. Control of tempo. Control of escalation. And that control was never lost. Every second of the encounter has already been captured. Acoustic signatures stored. Behavioral patterns mapped. Depth preferences recorded. Formation logic analyzed. Not just what those submarines were, but how they operated. That information moves quietly through the network, feeding training systems, improving detection models, and preparing crews who may never hear about this moment, but will benefit from it in the future. Above the surface, the escort continues its transit exactly as planned. No change in posture, no announcement, no public statement. To the outside world, it was simply an uneventful passage through cold northern waters. But for those who were there, it was a reminder of how modern maritime competition really unfolds. No missiles, no sonar bursts, no radio exchanges, just patience, discipline, and the physics of the ocean. The Russian submarines eventually fade beyond effective tracking range, leaving behind only faint residual noise and a complete record of how they approached and how they withdrew. Whatever message they intended to send was answered, not with force, but with silence that carried far more weight than any reply. This is the reality beneath the ice. Encounters happen without headlines. Challenges are issued without words. Outcomes are decided without witnesses. What matters is not who moved closer, but who understood the environment better. Who stayed quiet longer? Who allowed the other side to reveal its own weaknesses? On that day near Greenland, nothing exploded, nothing was broadcast, nothing demanded explanation, and that was exactly the point. The NATO escort continues forward, blending into the ice and sea around it. Somewhere far below, 3 submarines carry away the quiet realization that they were seen, studied, and calmly outplayed.